Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business with me, Danny Pardoe. On this episode, I'm talking business with Olivia. And if you think librarianing, which is a word because me and Olivia say it is just about sitting there reading books and moving them around a big room, then you've got another thing coming because we're going to smash away any stereotypes of what just being a librarian actually is all about. So I hope you enjoy this conversation that me and Olivia have got here for you. So let's go. Let's talk business with Olivia. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talking Business with me, Danny Pardoe. We've got Olivia here on this episode. Hello, Olivia. How you doing over there?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am very, very well. Thank you very much. It's a
Good.
pleasure to see you. I mean, there's a little bit of I was going to call it baggage then, but how rude would that have been?
No,
History between us. We do know each other a little bit, so
we do.
So we'll get to that. We'll get to it in good time. I promise all the viewers and listeners will get to all that good stuff. But before we get there, we've just got Olivia here, and I suppose we better find out who we're talking to. So, who is Olivia?
Yeah. Who is Olivia? You sent me
Yeah,
this question and I was like, God, man, that's it. That's like, what is a table?
I
And I
know,
was like,
and it's the first question as well. So, bang, here we go.
bang, straight in. So Olivia as a person is a loving, caring, enthusiastic, sometimes Duracell bunny without the batteries. Um, Self-confessed and very proud weirdo. Olivia is a worker, because I know we're talking about business. So Olivia under a business and work heading is a stubborn, stubborn, hardworking, passionate, at most times big mouth. That's a really
Nice.
random description,
Nice,
but
I
I quite
think.
like
I felt like just staying quiet and seeing how far you'll go with this. We'll just do 40 minutes of you explaining who you are in one word answers. So, okay. So, I mean, where do we go from there? So, we better
Yeah, where
find
do we go
out
from
then to where you are right now and then how
there?
you got there. And then we'll get stuck into a bit of the ins and outs of your industry, so to speak,
Yes,
and
of course.
your passions, of course.
Yeah.
You're pretty active on social media, so we'll get to that
Um,
as well. So, what's your current profession job at the moment?
So my official job title is Learning Resources Manager.
Mm-hmm.
But encompassing in that, I'm a librarian. I oversee academic support. This is all at a sixth form library currently. I oversee academic support, but I also get involved in events and careers and planning. But if anyone asks me and they don't have that long spiel of an answer, I say I'm a librarian.
So as not to confuse people and make people think that there's anything more to it than just books. So
Just books, if anyone asks.
just books,
Just
just
books.
moving books around, which we will completely destroy that notion as we go through
See,
this
look,
interview,
I've even
I'm
got books.
sure.
Did you look to give the
I,
clues?
I,
I've got
I
some.
had noticed. I trusted you anyway, but I had noticed, yes. It's a great green screen you've got there. So let's go back then to when you were, say, 16, 17 years old. Was it in your head that I am going to be a learning resource centre manager back when you were 16, 17, finishing your GCSEs?
Oh no, that was, in fact, being a librarian kind of learning resource manager was never ever in my head. I was one of these people that when I started my A levels, I still probably at that point was very much along the lines of I had got this passion about being a journalist.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, when I was choosing my A levels, I was like, subjects I'm good at and subjects that would be good for journalism. So I did I did English language and I did philosophy and ethics, religious studies, and French. Because I thought, yeah, journalism, I'm going to need to talk to foreign people. I'm going to be able to write and analyze. I'm going to need to understand people. Yes, 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 yes. And actually, through my A levels and right up until the end of my kind of A levels when I was doing my university applications, so the equivalent of year 13 in a British school, I was convinced I was going to be a journalist. But when we kind of got into the university application process, I kind of realised, and after my research, that if I wanted to be a journalist, or I wanted to be a journalist that was kind of well respected or come from a good background. Bit, I suppose, like people who want to be actors, you know, they go to have kind of high level colleges that they go to. If I wanted to be a journalist, I kind of researched and basically found that 95% of the people kind of accepted into journalism in the previous 5 years, or into journalist jobs, had all come from the same university. Can't think which one it was, but it was the kind of university that wasn't under traditional fees at the time. So we were looking at about like 10 grand a term or 10 grand a semester, and I went, I can't afford that. My family couldn't afford that if we wanted to, you know. Even if we
this is
sold
before grants and loans and support.
Yeah. So
and
when I went
things,
to university,
no offense,
when I was at university, fees were still £3,000 a year.
Yeah.
And I got a bursary to help me with my university costs when I eventually got to university. So it was that kind of sit down with my family and going, I want to be a journalist, but I'm never ever in my wildest dreams going to be able to afford that. And this was kind of, you know, we were well into the university application process. So I went down the road of thinking of, right, I don't know what I want to do right now then. I don't know where I'm going to end up with this. So I went down the path. I knew I wanted to go to university. So I went down the path of pick something you enjoy, because it's an expensive 3 to 4 years if you don't enjoy what you're doing. And pick something that actually, when you've done your degree, it could give you options. So actually you wouldn't be tied to, so for example, if people do a degree in nursing or teaching or law, you wouldn't be kind of tied to something that would give you options. So I ended up doing English language and literature at what is now BCU, because I always liked English. I was always good at English. English would give me options. And it actually was my BA was 3 years. So it was in the summer term of my second year. We were given the opportunity from within the university as a whole to apply for. It was called the Student Associate Scheme, where basically university students as kind of subject specialists / mentors went into local schools to kind of gain some experience working with young people in those subject areas, and just generally. So it was work experience. And I got the opportunity to go into a school that's on kind of my side of town. So we're kind of going out towards Lichfield side of Birmingham. And I loved it. And I kind of went, oh, hang on a minute. I could do this. And this is really fun. So actually, when I finished my BA English Language and Lit at what is now BCU, I applied to do a PGC. I was like, I'm going to be a teacher. And originally, I was like, I'm going to be a primary school teacher because I'm going to work with the young ones. That's easier.
Yeah, anybody who says that is lying to you.
They are lying.
Just straight up.
And actually, funny story, it turned about fair play. I had 5 kind of courses to apply to with the PGCE. And I applied for 4 primary and 1 secondary. I got rejected from all 4 primary courses, but got invited to interview for the secondary and was given a place on the secondary, which was through the University of Worcester.
Were you disappointed in that?
I was at the time, because I'm the kind of person that when my brain sets something like in my line, I'm going to be a primary school teacher.
Yeah. And
when deviate from that, it's like, oh, change. No, change is boring. No. And actually, at the interview for the secondary PGCE, the man who would become my subject course leader, and it would have been teacher training for English, this man who became my subject course leader actually turned around and said to me, he said, I've seen on your application that actually this is the only secondary PGCE you've applied for. What is going to stop you from just kind of getting on this qualification and then turning to primary? And I was like,
good question. Yeah.
I said, I was thinking, God, that's a good question. And I just said to him, I said, actually, maybe that I've underestimated the challenge that secondary could give me, and actually sharing a passion for my subject and sharing a passion for what I do, actually, I think would outweigh. I said, so actually, I don't think I would use it to apply for primary. I think I would take up the challenges the secondary had to offer me. And I got accepted. So that was a magical. I moved down to Worcester for that one, and that was magical. I qualified. So from 2000, and so I was there. My PGCE was 2006 to 2007. So from 2007 through to 2017, I taught at secondary schools. I taught a secondary school in the Black Country over Dudley Way. And then I moved to centre of Birmingham, just kind of East Birmingham, one of the most deprived areas in the UK. So it was kind of a massive change for me. And I taught there for nearly 9 years. That was a wonderful place it was a wonderful place to work. And actually, I only ended up stopping teaching because personal rubbish got in the way, and kind of with my mental health, it was like, I can't teach these kids and be the teacher these kids need right now.
That's a brave decision. That's a brave decision to make. After a decade in the business, so to speak.
It was one of those that I was like, I can't do this anymore. But I knew in my heart of hearts that I wanted to stay working in education. And the analogy I used was, I don't want to be the teacher in the centre of the spotlight anymore. I can't be the teacher. But I would really love to be one of these people that is round the edge of, the kind of has got the foot in, like the support. I suppose the term would be support staff. And call it karma or not, the day I handed in my resignation at my last teaching role, a job for my current place of work came up. A pastoral job vacancy came up. So I actually interviewed to be part of the pastoral team at my current place of work. And I went through the interview and I was like, okay, I can do this and I can do this. And I kind of came out of the interview and thought, do you know what? Que sera, sera. If it happens, it happens. I wouldn't have changed anything. I was very open about kind of the personal trash that had followed me around. So I was an open book, and I was like, take me or leave me. And it was the following day, the deputy principal at that time, who is now the principal, 5 years later, called me up and said, look, we're not going to offer you the pastoral role because you're way too overqualified for it. And I was like, oh, this is like, I've just finished a day teaching. I'm like, oh, but there is another role we'd like to talk to you about. Can you come back in? And that was at my current place of work. I now manage a team called the Academic Learning Coaches. So they're academic subject support for our students. So actually, I was asked to then go back in as an academic coach, which I did for 12 months. And it was at the end of my first year in the academic coach role that the opportunity for learning resources manager came up. I applied and got it. And 4 years later, we are having this conversation
and
today.
Here we are.
So actually, librarianing was never, ever on the cards.
Wow, which is quite strange to hear, because anybody who spends more than about 30 seconds with you feels your passion for librarianing and books, and not just books, but information and advice and help and support. That passion emanates from you for those people who know you. Trust me, because I'm one of them, and you can feel it. So it's really interesting to think that you did the teaching route, and doing a decade in teaching is pretty impressive. As somebody who's been there and done it myself, it's I could just veer off now as I think about decades of teaching. I know, but I'm going to come back down and focus on the microphone and talk about this instead. It's really impressive that you were able to do that, and then still have that passion for working with young people and helping, supporting, and making their lives better, which is what you've been doing. But I thought a librarian, though, was just books on shelves. I mentioned it earlier, and people see you, I presume, and think, oh, yeah, Olivia the librarian. Yeah,
all she does all day is read.
That's it, the perception that it's a nice, quiet library, and you can just sit behind your desk and a cup of tea. And I think we're about to completely destroy that notion. So what's a day in the life of a resource centre manager? I mean, we haven't got all day. I'm looking at the time here.
We haven't got all day.
Is there a normal day? Do you I start at 8 and I finish at 4?
The only normal element about my day is that on a typical day, I would work from 8:30 till 4:30. But some days it's later, some days it's earlier. But that would probably be the closest thing to typical that I have. So a typical day I'm just thinking back to today, because I've been kind of had external visitors and kind of stuff in today. So a normal day for me, I think context for our library are the sixth form college where I currently work. We are this year about 2,600 students, and at full capacity on kind of seating, our library can hold about 150 to 200.
Wow.
So I think
yeah.
that's something. So we are always busy. We've always got constant footfall for our students. A typical day for me, let me give you an example. Let me take some examples from today,
Okay.
because I think that is a good way of doing
Literally
it.
one day at a time.
Literally one day at a time. So part of my role is I line manage the team that I used to be a part of, the academic learning coaches. So first thing in the morning, we'll be making sure they're sorted, either with their academic support sessions that they booked, or they also do cover for absent teachers. Now, these are, at the start of the year, these are young people who have never worked in education before. They've all got either a first or 2-1 in their subjects, and they've got a possible interest of working in education. So I've had to kind of almost train them up as kind of trainee teachers. So I've been a teacher to the big kids, as I say. So we make sure they're okay. I've had an external visitor in today. We've been talking about digital resources and increasing that. I'm building slowly a new book order for the end of the year, which is curriculum resources that are being shared with me by heads of departments, but is also other additional resources, for example, student requests. So I'm the biggest book nerd alive, and you will vouch for this. I'm the biggest book nerd alive. And actually, one of the positives I found coming out of the pandemic, that our current first year students, so our year 12s, are the most voracious readers I've worked with in 5 years. So I'm getting it in and they're reading it and wanting new stuff. It's like that. So I'm having to kind of keep up with that demand, but I enjoy having to keep up with a demand for that reason.
Is that due to the last couple of years and lockdown and being limited in what they can do?
Dare I say, TikTok has really done me a favour.
Go on.
This kind of whole concept of book talk.
Yes.
The bookish area of TikTok, for anyone who doesn't know. It's happened on in the social media platforms. So there is a kind of bookish area of YouTube, which is known as BookTube. And there's kind of bookish Twitter, and there's kind of all these things. But actually, TikTok, this kind of build on books and reading, and actually books that have been out for years and have kind of always been underhyped, never got it. Sharing this, the first kind of month when we came back in September 2021, all the students come and say, Miss, have you got this book? Miss, have you got this book? Now, I created a TikTok account solely for the cute animals and the funny videos, she says. But it was this element of, I knew that all the requests that were coming in were books I'd seen on TikTok or books I'd seen promoted on TikTok. And I was like, hang on a minute, is social media doing me a favor here? So actually, purely, that was a combination of kind of my knowledge and them starting to bring in things that were on TikTok. You know, I bring in some novels that were on TikTok, and you would hear the students coming and go, oh, Olivia got us that. Olivia got us that. And then it's word of mouth. Wow. The power of word of mouth in teenagers. Oh, strongest thing.
Yeah.
So the kind of word of mouth built, and then it was, well, Olivia, can we request this? Olivia, can we request this? Olivia, would you consider getting this in? And the policy I always try and do with stock is, if I don't, particularly for kind of what I would class as reading for pleasure titles, if I don't know it, I'll either research it or read it myself before I allow it in. So I have read some, in my opinion, rubbish this year, but the students are obsessed with it.
You've got to do what your customers want, I'm afraid. You got to roll with it.
The customer is always right. Yeah, of course you can have that in. Did you like it, Olivia? No. But we would be bored if we were all the same. So this year, but again, keeping on top of that and keeping up with the new releases and kind of keeping them engaged. So actually, I've got a year group who are voracious readers and know what we can do with stock. So when we get the new, they become second years, and then we get the new first years in September. I've got a trained year group, if you like, on sharing word of mouth wise what we have and what we can do. So it's stock. I've been planning events today. So I've just been told that I'm going to be in charge of our whole college's events for Black History Month come October. So I've started planning events for that. I've done some designs with our marketing team. We've got student council president elections coming up. We're also having a Jubilee celebration day. So I've been part of the designs for those. Had the external visitor in. I then had a careers meeting because I'm also part of the planning team for our upcoming careers progression day, which you've been involved with before. And then it's general emails and admin, talking to students, because any of the academic support the students want with my team the requests have to come through me, so I can kind of keep track of what's going on. So it was answering emails, it was sending back parcels, it was tidying the shelves, it was returning books to the shelves that had been returned from students. I've also set up today, later in the week, I'm doing a workshop on Harvard referencing. The list goes on.
Yeah. So self-organization, creativity, problem solving, managerial,
time management,
administrative. Yeah.
Yep, it's all of it. For me, it's the prioritization of tasks and keeping yourself to kind of account on what you do. Because as you can see, I've got a lot of librarian roles there, I've got a lot of management roles there, and I've got a lot of what I would class as events roles, kind of whole college events roles. So it's been able to prioritize, and a big element of time management as well. So, knowing that if I need to go and have these meetings about an event, well, I actually can't do that there. So actually I need to spend this much time somewhere else doing this. And then I need to make time because I need to go and talk to that person about this. Yeah. And then I need to go and see this teacher about this workshop they want done and make sure it's right. And then I need the new stock's going to come in. So that's going to need cataloguing and putting on shelves. It's almost the pebble effect, the ripple effect. The thing I do is the pebble dropping in. But actually, a lot of it are the ripples that it creates from it. Yeah. So we order in new stock. That's the stone kind of drop. But then it's the stock comes in. The stock needs to be catalogued and kind of like tags and stuff in it. It then needs to be reshelved. It then needs to be promoted. It then needs to become part of the genuine collection. So a lot of what I do is very ripple effect, I would say. But there is never one thing I like about my job is that no day is the same. Yeah, I like that it's a bit of everything.
Yeah, and I think that's an understatement. In all honesty, to you, in a great way. For you'll have your daily tasks, which most jobs do, and then now what? And then absolutely everything of the different events throughout the year kind of help that as well. And I mean, you've been in doing your current job for 5 years. Currently 5 years, and I know you're active on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle if we want to find you?
Miss Olivia Reads.
Right, at Miss Olivia Reads. So we'll put it somewhere on the screen and stuff. But I mean, you liaise with a lot of librarians, and you're very active kind of on the social media, talking and again, your passion. You don't do all that in your own time if you're not passionate about it. So have you seen, talking to your colleagues and your own experience, has the role of, I'll throw the old air quotes in, librarian, changed over the last 5 years or so that you've seen? And is it changing moving forwards? For example, you said you had somebody coming in to do digital resources today.
Yeah. I think it definitely, certainly in the time I've been in post, I felt a distinct change to my role. So kind of when I first started in the world of librarians, it was very much about the print-based resources, and it was about the books, and it was about kind of the stock management, if you like. And it was more about kind of promoting and building on what we had. So when I came into role, the library hadn't been touched for 6 months, but that was because before that there had been a librarian at our college who'd been there for like 30 years, and he'd retired. So kind of when I took it over, I still remember on my first day, my then line manager saying to me, I said, well, what do you want me to do on my first day? And he went, just go and tidy the library. And I was like, okay. Because I have no official library training. I'm completely self-taught. Yeah. So even in my role, that kind of the advancement of I certainly think and it's a compliment to where I work, the element of the librarian not just being about the resources and the books, I think has been one noticeable change. That actually the input the library can have on everything within an educational setting, whether it's primary, whether it's secondary, whether it's FE, the impacts the library can have, and actually the input the library should have in all these areas has become much more recognised. So when I first started, I never would have kind of thought about speaking to a head of department and going, do you want us to make a reading list for that? Or do you want us to come and do a workshop on Harvard referencing for that? Or can I find you some links to some journals online? I never would have thought of that because I don't know those subjects. So how on earth can I do that? Yeah. But thankfully for some very supportive staff members, that kind of the library and how it actually can help teachers out, and how it can help kind of whole establishment learning and kind of progress. It's not just a place where the books live, so to speak. I think certainly one thing that has been changing for me recently, and this was COVID pandemic induced, if you like, for our students, our college is based in one of the most deprived areas of Birmingham, and one of the biggest take-ups we had when we went to blended learning and students were learning from home is not necessarily that students couldn't use the software, it was students didn't have access to the software. So a lot of our students come from larger families, and whereas, you know, if they've got one laptop for a larger family on a regular basis, that would work. But if they've then got a, say, sixth form age child, they've got, say, then a top end year 10 11 child, they've then got a year 7 child, and then a back end of primary school, and all of them needed to be on the laptop doing Zoom or online classes at the same time. The access to the digital became the issue. And actually, you know, that a lot of our resources we used up to that point were purely print. We had very little digital resources. So I think the big thing for me coming out of the pandemic, and kind of now we are, touch wood, moving away from it, was actually that we needed to desperately up our digital offer. So actually, it wasn't just going to be about the books. So God forbid, if it ever happened again, or, you know, if we had a student who on long-term sick and kind of had to work from home or something like that, that actually they didn't need to panic that they couldn't get hold of a textbook or they couldn't get hold of a wider reading book, that actually they can access it on their phone. So, for example, I've just introduced a new ebook platform that has not all of them yet, but it has the majority of all of our departments set subject textbooks on. So if our students download that app and log in with their college details, they can download that entire textbook or a PDF copy of that entire textbook to their phone. Now, for some of our students, some of our reluctant students, they are more likely to do that than come and get the book out of the library.
Yeah. And that's amazing. That brings me on to my next question, something you alluded to earlier in terms of the power of the power of a book, so to speak, and the perception, again, which I've been guilty of stereotyping myself, that students live on their phones. I'm not around students as much as I used to be. Is that an incorrect perception, or is it correct, or is a book still powerful, or, like you said, TikTok is bringing things back in? I mean, how have you seen the ebbs and flows of the power and passion behind reading with the young people you work with?
It can be dependent on the book. So there are some of our students, we talk about kind of curriculum books and textbooks and things like that. There are some of our students that will never ever come in the library, you know, even if they're told to, they will never come in the library, and they won't get the book out, and they'll go, oh, I don't want to carry it around, But actually, they will always be on their phones, and they will always be messaging their friends and things. So to have the ability where we can go, you've just got to download a free app, and that's your textbook, and that's going to help you get a better grade, and have your teachers stop moaning at you. The light bulb kind of results.
Yeah, 3 or 4 clicks and you are sorted.
Yeah, that's it, you're sorted. But again, we have some students that, from a kind of textbook point of view, want to be the ones that sit there and have all their textbooks out and all their paper out so they can see what they're doing. I think certainly from a kind of reading and a reading for pleasure point of view, I think the printed word is more prominent at the moment. I think social media is doing well for encouraging reading, engaging young people's interest, that there is this thing called books and reading, and it is fun and proven to be good for your well-being. I do think probably there was an element coming out of the pandemic where a lot of young people in particular got tired of looking at screens. So whereas, you know, you will see the people with the kind of the book apps on their phone, or the libraries or library apps on their phone, and kind of reading ebooks. Actually, I know certainly for me, I love my Kindle. No product placement. I love my Kindle. My Kindle goes everywhere with me, and I have the Kindle app on my phone if I can't take my Kindle.
Just in case.
But just in case. But actually, of late, I found, and this is just personally for me, my eyes, because I'm on screen, I can be on screen so much, my eyes get tired. So actually putting my phone down and sitting down with a book, an actual book, is better for me, or it's better for me, and I enjoy it more because it's not on a screen, so I can shut down with it a bit more. So actually, I'd probably say, dependent on the form of the book, can depend on the engagement. I don't think, as much as people would probably say the kind of printed word, if you like, is on its way out, I wouldn't say that at all. You know,
That's
I go into
nice to hear.
all the bookshops I go into in the town centre are always full, and
Yeah.
always kind of people at the tills buying piles and piles of things. So,
Right.
and I do think social media's had to help with that, because I don't think that they would be getting some of the popularity they did if it wasn't for things like TikTok.
Yeah. Fascinating how obviously social media you can look at in a variety of different ways, both
Yeah,
positive and
yeah,
negative, and
yeah,
to pick out some of the positive elements of what it's done, which you won't normally hear about in media and
no,
news stories, because it's not very exciting news to read, is it? But things are
no,
actually good. So it's quite interesting to hear that it can have a positive effect. And
yeah,
now going into career advice, while we've still got a few minutes left here. So
yeah,
I mean, you said you're managing staff and you're
yeah,
helping train and develop staff and people at the start of their careers, out of
yeah,
university. What the heck am I going to do for the next 45, 50 years
yeah.
until I
Rabbit in
retire? And
headlights and that.
yes, and then you're there in front of them going, right. So, I mean, what are you looking for when you've got new staff, either if you're hiring them or if somebody comes to
Yeah.
you as like, this is your new starter? What are the things that you're looking for in new members of staff?
I think as a general kind of worker, because, if you take my team, for instance, this role they've taken on with me is not only their first experience kind of working in education rather than being in education, it is their first professional job as well. So that the kind of first professional workplace. So kind of from a library point of view, I look for someone. Well, actually, I suppose it crosses over. I say to the team that I have every year, if I have any new starters, I say the thing I will always look for with you is that I want you to be willing to just have a go. I want, if I to give you something to do and you're not sure how to do it, I will guide you. Of course, I would never leave you on your own, but I want you to just be willing to try anything. I want you to be willing to roll your sleeves up and just try it. If it doesn't work, we'll work it out. We'll think, okay, how can we do this better next time? But I want you to be able to try things out, not be afraid to try things out, but also be very self-evaluative of it. So if it doesn't work, was there anything you did there? What would you do to change it? Which actually was a piece of advice that was always drilled into me in my teaching career about the importance of self-evaluation. I think in any kind of concept of education or any kind of management thing, you also need to have a bit of resilience. You need to be very resilient in what you do. You're working with teenagers who have no filters. And I also, another piece of advice I always give is never take anything the students say personally, because it's never against you. It would be against you as an authority figure, but it would never be against you as a person. And I think the third piece of advice I would give for anyone coming to work with me is, well, is it advice or is it more a statement? What I say, I always want to upskill my team in whatever way I can. But I kind of say, in return for me, presenting you suitable opportunities for me to upskill you, for me to kind of help you be the best you can be in this, what I need from you is your 100% commitment and dedication. So you're not coming here to just sit around and chat and have fun with your friends if you're in the SU bar, you're here to work. And a line I use quite regularly is, if I see you sitting around, I'm going to assume I'm not giving you enough to do.
Yeah,
So I think it
nice.
is that element of, it's the dedication, it's the commitment, but also that willingness just to try. One thing like my addendum to that, if you like, is I always say to them, I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself. So one of their job roles is covering lessons for absent teachers. I've been a cover supervisor. I've done just as much as them this academic year. I have my teaching background, yes. But so when they say, well, I had this issue and I had this issue, I've been in front of the classes as well. So I know. So it's not like I'm trying to almost look down on them. I am their manager, but I can also appreciate the things they see from their point of view.
Yes, yeah, which is crucial, and it's hard to tell people to do something if you're not going to demonstrate how to do it. So
Exactly.
I'm going to ask you two quick questions here, but I haven't prepped you for as we get towards the end. First one, are you a role model?
I try to be. I always try to be, because I always look back to, what did I need from people who I looked up to? What did I look to them and go, yeah. So my first ever head of department in what was my NQT year, was a school I worked at in Dudley. I, not literally, I worshipped the ground she walked on, because she was everything to me that I was like, that's what I want to be when I grow up. That's what I want to be. And it was those qualities that I've taken from those kind of people that I've met through my teaching life, through my personal life, who I've worked with or who I've necessarily worked with but known about, and kind of taken, but then applied it and gone, what would I want from me? So granted, we all have off days, we all have bad days. So some days I just say to myself, I'm going to my desk to work, just get on with it and just deal with it yourself.
Yeah, well, we all have those days or weeks or months. So I'm with you.
But I kind of try to be that. What would I want if I was on that team? What would I want a manager to be? Or what would I want a manager to be willing to talk to me about or do for me, or kind of that kind of thing? So I certainly try to be.
Yeah, and I know when I worked with you, you were always a beacon of openness and positivity, and the like you say to your staff, let's try something, and if it fails, it fails, and if it works, great. You know, you learn from it either way, and somebody will benefit eventually. So, and then the last question for you, although we could keep this going for hours, I'm sure.
I think we could.
Last question, over to you. You probably know this one because I know you've watched a few episodes, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And if you could go back to when you're 16, 17, give Olivia a bit of advice, or you wish somebody had told you something when you were 16 or 17, but you didn't have to wait till your mid-20s or whenever to figure it out, what would that advice have been?
Probably don't be afraid to be brave. That life is not a straight line from A to B, and that's okay. And actually give yourself a little bit more credit, because you are good at what you do and you don't always see that. So maybe be nice to yourself a little bit every so often. That's nice. What I'd say.
I like that. I'm going to remember that myself. Excuse me, look at that. Almost went the whole episode of sneezing. Now the question is, do I leave that in? And we go 100% authentic. So there you go. In case anybody's thinking, wow, these people can just talk. No, we have senses. So
we sneeze.
What a way to finish it. You give such great advice and I just sneeze at you. So I hope that doesn't take away from the impact of it. Olivia, it's been awesome chatting to you. It's been great to catch up. Stay on the line a little bit towards the end and we'll say a proper cheerio. But for now, thank you so much. Your honesty and your openness and everything that you do, you make real difference to people's lives. And keep doing it, keep doing it. They appreciate it, I'm sure.
I'm glad we finally got to do this, because you and me have been talking about doing this for ages.
Yeah, since about episode 23, and this is 60. So a while. Yeah. But
and I've loved it, so I'm so glad we got around to doing this. I'm so
we got there, didn't we? We got there.
We got there at the end.
Worth the wait, and hopefully our viewers and listeners agree. So, Olivia, thanks for talking business. Appreciate it a lot, and I'll say cheerio. Yeah.
Bye.
Cheerio. Thank you, Olivia. You truly are one of the most inspirational, positive and open-minded people that I know. So thank you very much for taking the time to talk business with me. I really do appreciate it. And to all our viewers and listeners, thank you to you too for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, rating, reviewing. Really do appreciate it. As you know, it helps more people find the podcast and more people take advantage of the career advice, employability insights and educational experiences. So until next time on Talking Business with Danny Pardoe, I'll just say cheerio.